Hi, I'm Amy T. Meyer. I'm here all on my own today with. Okay, so I am going to bring in my guest, and I'd like you to help me welcome Major Kim Rooster, and I'm going to mess up your last name, even though I didn't earlier. Rossiter.
Hey, that works with me.
Okay, who is a retired Marine, and I met him at the Spartan Leadership Summit for the first time just a couple weeks ago. And he got an award through the Travis Manion Foundation for working, uh, for having nonprofits work together, which I think is an amazing, awesome award. But we're going to start off with asking the question that we always start off with. Why did you pick the Marine Corps?
I love that one. The Marine Corps was, the easiest answer and the most concise way is I walked out of the Navy recruiting office and saw the United States Marine standing there, 6'1", 230 pounds, full dress blue uniform. And when I saw him, I immediately said, I want that. The rest of the story is him making me justify why I thought I had what it took to become that. And so as a result of that kind of battle that was happening, it became very clear to me as the vacuum just got turned on behind me and took all of my attention to the vacuum. That's very loud. It became very clear to me that like the Marine Corps believes in not handing you anything and that there's a challenge. And by the way he turned back and looked at me, it made me immediately conclude like, this is for me. I like the challenge. It's just not going to be put on a platter. That's kind of the short story. There's a whole nother backstory about how I finally came out of the Navy office, which was preceded by the Air Force office, and how the different recruiters may or may not have completely impressed me. And then there's the whole story about how I even thought to go to the recruiting office, which is probably important to point out very briefly. My father said, "Hey, it's a young person's decision." That's what he said, and it rang true as I got older and started reflecting on that. Like, you're not necessarily joining the military at 37, 42, 51. So like as a young person, this is kind of your opportunity to make that decision. And so that's what got me down that road. So long answer, easy question.
So, did you go in as an officer? Because you retired as an officer.
Yeah, no, I actually went straight in right out of high school and went to Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, and rose to the rank of staff sergeant before going to officer candidate school and then becoming a second lieutenant. And then I retired as a major, really the day before what would have been my promotion to lieutenant colonel. So kind of a good test the next day as you see some of your friends being promoted and you're happy for them and have no regret about the decision to retire. I basically saw like a passion shift, and we can get into how that all happened. But I knew I had made the right decision.
That's exciting. So, what year did you get out? Did you retire?
Yeah, it was 2018. So this was right Labor Day weekend was when the ceremony was, and then October 1st would have been the official date. So October of 18.
So, So you retired. Did you have transition services, or what was? Did you already have a plan in your mind what you were going to do after retirement?
Yeah, I did. What a softball kind of queued that up for me. Ainsley's Angels of America, which is what I do every day of my life now, in addition to my service and support of the Travis Manion Foundation, is the charity that I founded with my sister in 2011. Ainsley was my daughter, and we can get into all the details of that if you would like to. But in 2011, once the charity was established, I saw from probably 11 to 2015, this shift of passion. Like the same passion that I had for being a Marine, I started to see that, I guess, get kind of replaced by this passion for wanting to help others domestically, specifically those in the exceptional needs space. So essentially, the charity partners all people with typically abled people. So you basically are taking folks with some type of handicap or disability, or what I like to call an exceptional abilities, different abilities, and partnering with able-bodied athletes, so runners, swimmers, bikers, and make sure that everybody then with the proper equipment can enjoy an endurance event, be out in community events. And I just started to see that shift occur between 2011 and 2015, and I paid attention to it. So it was sometime around 15, 16 is when Ainsley passed away. And I said, well, let me give it one more shot. I went to one more duty station as an executive officer at one of the units nearby. And hold on just a minute. He's going to have to edit. Hey, babe, I'm on a podcast recording. I didn't tell you about that, but if they're going to edit it, but if we can, all right, how much longer do you have with that floor thing there? Okay.
I can't control his barking now.
Oh no, I'm not worried about the barking. Like the vacuum and the thing there. Yeah, I'm
done vacuuming.
awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have communicated better.
Yeah, probably should.
Yeah, I should have. So I'm going to go back to the. So I started to see this passion shift sometime around 2015-ish. And then I took one more set of orders to do an XO job and felt that continue to happen. And just listening to it told me, okay, it's time. And they always say when you retire, you just know that it's the right time. So now I'm like leaned into that. And so I didn't have transition services because everything that I'm doing was aimed at continuing to follow that passion. And so I rolled into doing the Ainsley's Angels piece full time upon retirement.
So where is Ainsley's Angels located?
Yeah, so it was founded in Louisiana, but we operate primarily here in Virginia where I am, but we're in hundreds of communities across the country. So we have about 70 key volunteers that head the program up in different cities. And then from there, they're able to impact the local communities. So for example, we have, just use Houston for an example. Ainsley's Angels in Houston has a leader on the ground there, but she's still able to impact the Woodlands, Katy, Galveston, all of that area, if that kind of makes sense to you. So Louisiana, Virginia, but operating in hundreds of communities across the country.
So we usually ask what do you use today that you learned from the military? And so that still can be true for you.
Oh, 100%.
Do you think how do you think your service has helped your nonprofit?
Immensely, like critical to its success. Like the leadership aspect, all of the elements of leadership, how to bring a group of people in to get, focused on a task, and then how to make sure that you're at the same time taking care of those people as they're executing. So like the Marine Corps idea of mission accomplishment and troop welfare. So like we're going to get the task done, but at the same time, we also need to make sure that we're taking care of those that you're leading. That plays true all the time. I would also offer, through the career, 25 years, you have different touch points where you come across different people and different stories and different backgrounds, and being able to have some level of empathy or compassion and understanding with your Marines translates really well to what you're doing, what I'm doing now when it comes to the people aspect, if that makes sense. And then I would probably add, in addition to that, really is just the Marine Corps, the service helps you with organization. It helps you with making sure that you can identify tasks through planning and then stay on task and kind of go through that process. And that goes hand in hand, I think, with communication, both verbal, written, and being able to articulate kind of what your thoughts and concerns and ideas are in a way that can be understood. So all of those things every single day.
So, do you feel like when you look back at your service and you spend a number of years enlisted and then a number of years as an officer, do you have did you enjoy one over the other, or what do you feel? And also, did you enjoy one or the other? And also, is there just a passion difference?
Yeah, great question. I think that I was at certain points in my life where I enjoyed where I was. And so when I was a corporal or a sergeant or a staff sergeant, it's not like I was earning to go do to go seek a commissioning, become an officer. It wasn't like this, oh my gosh, the grass is greener on the other side type of thing. It was more about just examining opportunities to have the most impact, to take care of the most number of Marines, and to be able to truly leverage skill sets and capabilities in a way that could benefit the Marine Corps the most. And so as an enlisted Marine, I loved being a sergeant, probably one of the best ranks in all of the service, to be a non-commissioned officer, the senior non-commissioned officer rank, where your daily is having a chance to interact with the Marines and be their first line of defense from the officers, and also at the same time be a mentor to them. So that's fabulous. But I think that as you grow and develop and you stay in the enlisted track, there's opportunities to then become, gunnery sergeant or a first sergeant, or in some of the other services, chief petty officer or sergeant first class. And that role shifts. So now you're overseeing, obviously, all of the NCOs and going through that process. And I felt like if I could start over as a second lieutenant, I would still be able to kind of have an opportunity to do more of the, I don't want to say the trench work, but the stuff that you're doing at the lower levels, which, and by lower, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean more of the execution, more of the stuff. Whereas I thought if I had stayed in the enlisted track, I would be supervising more of it. And this could be confusing to the listener who's going, no, officers supervise. Yeah, they do. But like lieutenants, they do. Like, especially in the intelligence community, which is where I served all of my years, the intelligence professionals that are lieutenants are doers and analysts, and still have the chance to be supervisors of the enlisted Marines, but they work well together with the senior enlisted folks who have been doing it a while. And I just feel like it was the right transition for me. And so looking back on it all, no regrets about any of the decisions along the way. And I would say that I enjoyed where I was when I was there. You had a follow-up question, an additional piece to that. I can't remember what it was though.
It was like, do you feel like one had more passion than the other?
Yeah, I don't. I don't at all. I would say that there are certain jobs in the service that could be the case. And I'll give you an example, is probably being, and I never had the opportunity to do this, but like a drill instructor. I think that drill instructors in the Marine Corps at the sergeant, staff sergeant level, like these Marines are extremely passionate about making Marines. And that level of passion would not perhaps compare to the same assignment, like as a lieutenant, a captain, or a major at Paris Island or Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego. It's because you're not making Marines as much as you are if you're a sergeant or staff sergeant. So I think the passion really shines through in that. So, but for me, I didn't see a difference in the intelligence community. I felt like the passion to achieve a level of understanding for the commander was there, whether or not you were a sergeant working through the analytical work, trying to identify and put all the pieces together, or if you're doing the same thing on the officer side.
So I think my next question is there anything that you left behind? Like my co-host always says, he left behind the 24-hour clock. He goes to dinner at 6 p.m., not 1800.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you left behind, that you didn't feel would serve you moving forward?
Weekly haircuts. I left those behind. I haven't received a weekly haircut since 2018. I now get them 2 to 4 weeks. I would also say I didn't leave it completely behind, but I definitely have only used it 3 times since 2018, which is a straight razor. So while I was enlisted, I was able to I used a straight razor every single day. Not enlisted, but when I was on active duty, I used a straight razor, meaning shave your face every night. But now I've only used that same type of device 3 times, and I've moved to more of an electric razor thing, trying to figure all that out. That's been interesting to be in your 40s trying to figure out how to use an electric razor properly. But yeah, I would say those 2 things, the straight razor to a degree, and the weekly haircuts. As you can see, very, very proud of my locks of hair here.
Your locks.
Yes.
So when did you start volunteering for TMF?
Yeah, thank you. So the Travis Manning Foundation has a program. It's called the Spartan Leadership Program. And in November of 2020, a Marine that I had gone to Officer Candidate School, Chris Story, posted on his Facebook that he had just completed the first cohort of the Spartan Leadership Program, a brand new program that the Travis Manion Foundation has put together. And then he was encouraging his friends to consider applying. I never forget it because I came across it as I was fixing to put my phone down for the night and just kind of be done with it. But when I saw it, it spoke to me. And I immediately just clicked the link, filled out the application, went back to the Facebook post and said, done. And he quickly responded so as to say, man, that's awesome. You're going to love it. The reason that I did it was I felt like it was at a point where I really needed to pour some energy into to sharpening the saw, continuing to not just be complacent with accomplishments and experience and education of the past. And this program, the way it was presented, where they're taking families of the fallen and veterans and bringing them together to teach and learn from one another, felt like that was a dynamic that I had never really been exposed to that degree. And what made it even more appealing or interesting was, of course, having Ainsley pass away in 2016. As we're not a family of the fallen or a Gold Star family, but I did lose my 12-year-old daughter. So I felt like there was an angle there too that was going to provide not only more opportunity to connect with some of the other Spartans, but also more of an opportunity to dig deep on some of the things that maybe I was needing to pay attention to. And so I applied, was accepted, and went on to the 7-month program. And along the way, you have opportunities to do various things in your own community while you're going through the program. And one of them is the Character Does Matter program that basically is to help the next generation learn a little bit more about character. So a Spartan leader will go in as a mentor and provide a session to talk about character. And we were tasked with doing that and having it recorded. And it made no sense. It made perfect sense to me to go back to the unit that I had retired from, because you have a whole lot of young Marines fresh out of boot camp that are just starting their intelligence careers. And so it's like, when I was a young Marine fresh out of boot camp on Thanksgiving Day of 1994, showing up at that same base, there was an opportunity to make a lot of decisions, and all the decisions, good decisions, bad decisions. And I just don't remember, because it's your first time away from home, away from a drill instructor or a troop handler. Those decisions that you make are going to be based on what you've been taught up until that point. And I felt like character, yes, it's talked about in early stages of boot camp. Like there's an acronym, JJ Did Tie Buckle, which stands for a bunch of leadership traits. But I feel like the deep meaning of character and the true kind of deep dive on understanding what character is and all of its elements is something that's not necessarily taught. So anyway, I decided that was going to be the group I wanted to talk to, these young 18-year-olds. And that sparked this amazing like passion within me, but also the unit has been so grateful. So now every month I'm going back and doing the same sessions. And we have actually integrated the Manion WOD, the workout of the day, that's named by the CrossFit community in honor of Travis Manion. And we go there. And then it came to mind, if we're going to go do these exercises, these workout of the days where we're running and lifting, why don't I integrate my other passion? So decided to kind of bridge the gaps between the exceptional needs community that Ainsley's Angels deals with and the young Marines out there, and expose them to compassion and empathy and all people. And so now the young Marines get to push the Ainsley's Angels riders during these workouts. And it's just so cool to see, because some of them are the same age, 18, 19, 20-year-old riders that are also now right there with their peers who are active duty Marines. It's really neat to see how that's grown and developed. And it's another piece, I think, of being a leader is being able to connect with all people. And these Marines are getting that. So that, in addition to trying to make sure that Ainsley's Angels can show up at as many Travis Manion Foundation 9/11 Heroes runs as possible in a very scaled and sustainable way. We did 3 of them in 21. We're doing 6 of them in 22. And I want to grow by 100% each year. So by 2024, we hope to be in 24 of the Travis Manion Foundation 9/11 Hero runs. So that's a long answer to your question, but there was a lot to unpack there. It all started with an application to the Spartan Leadership Program.
That's great. Well, Ed would always say, like, what do you need from us? Like, how can we help you?
I mean, it's really just a matter of making people aware of some of the opportunities that are out there. if you're in the veteran space, if you're in the Gold Star family space, if you're even on the active duty space, there's a place for you in the Travis Manion Foundation. There's a plethora of opportunities for you to take your strengths and to lead with them. So I would recommend making people aware. I need you to make people aware of the Travis Manion Foundation's efforts. And at the same time, making people aware of what we're doing with Ainsley's Angels across the country. Because there are many people who don't know about this program that are now isolated in their home and are not aware that with a little bit of effort and knowledge, like they could be out in the community experiencing road races and other endurance events and be paired up with folks. And maybe it's not in their community. Maybe Travis Manion Foundation isn't active in their community. Maybe Ainsley's Angels isn't active in their community. So what I would love from you and your listeners is to consider, how can we change that? How can we bring these programs to our communities for the better?
Sure. So do you have a chapter up in Washington State?
Yeah. So Ainsley's Angels of America is operating, we call it the Sound. So Ainsley's Angels in the Sound. And we're primarily on the west side. Was it Bremerton? Yeah. That's how you say that, Bremerton. And that's primarily where we're operating out of. Of course, you can take the ferry across to Seattle, and they do that sometimes for some events. But we're not on what would be, I guess, the Seattle side yet. We haven't been able to find somebody to help us bring the program there, which is surprising to me because there's a lot of outdoor, a lot of running events in greater Seattle, and it would be really, really good to expand to that area. Go ahead.
There's a nonprofit called Outdoors for All that maybe I'll try to get a connection for you, because they do a lot with MVP, and I don't know if it just sounds like it could be a good connection. And they do they'll have a skills park for bikes, and even if I have a bike, I can go and use their equipment, and they will bring whatever is needed for me. So it could be, our excursion could be skiing, our excursion could be biking, it could be any number of things that are outdoors, and it's called Outdoors for All. So it might be a good one. I know Ed's in Modesto, California. Do you have any chapters down in California?
Yeah, there's two of them. We're in Sacramento, and then we're in Southern California. So when we say Southern California, basically San Diego up through Camp Pendleton up to probably Carlsbad / Long Beach, and have done events in LA. But when it comes to being able to cover that swath in SoCal, it would be really helpful to have somebody closer in the LA area that could come on and we could mentor and train them to be able to bring the program there. It's not as difficult as someone might think. It's just a matter of taking the step. And then up in Sacramento, we're active there. Of course, everything that was the past few years has reduced the number of organized outdoor running events. And so as we lean back into life in 2022 and 2023, there's plethora of opportunities in both of those regions.
Yeah. And he's a runner, biker, and an outdoorsy guy too.
Yeah. I for whatever reason, I don't know. Well, I can't recall off the top of my head exactly where Modesto is.
Amen.
Yeah. Somewhere in between Sacramento and San Diego, perhaps.
I have no idea, really.
Well, if it's too far from San Diego, LA, and Sacramento, then perhaps he knows somebody that can help us get it to Modesto.
And he's actually really, I'm sure he does. He's on the radio. He does another podcast called Real Estate Jerky and a couple other things. So he might be a good connection.
Yeah.
For sure. What I was going to ask you, do you have any famous Marine Corps stories that you love to tell when you're in a bar? There I was.
I mean, I spent my year in the intelligence community. So the number of stories I have for the bar are really not that lengthy. In fact, it's weird how you kind of change your mind up to be able to segment that stuff. So like the question has caught me off guard because like I don't think I do have any famous stories or anything that's going to excite the audience that we can talk about.
I always think of, I don't know, sometimes I think it was a lifetime ago when I was in the service, and I think of, all the stupid things we do as privates and, um, you know, stuff like that are fun to talk about. I will say
they are. There's a couple that now you mentioned that are coming to mind, but I just don't know if this is the place for them.
Okay. So one of the things the reason why we have this podcast is because we feel like there are huge information silos. And a lot of the times, so like the Army sometimes can tell their story, but they do it like through AUSA, or the VFW, the Legion tells their stories, but we're not cross-pollinating and sharing information. And even talking the way you did, like as far as transition services, you didn't participate because you already had a vision and a goal.
Yeah.
But what we have found from stories across the U.S. is that there's junior enlisted have far less opportunities from the stories that we've shared. Whereas, like when an officer retires, they seem to have the Amazon internships and the Microsoft internships and the different things like that, where there's far less vetting of jobs for junior enlisted. And whether that's okay because they're a young person, but sometimes those young people have families and still skill sets that aren't necessarily being utilized or understood. Mm-hmm. And so so this is supposed to just be like nobody's, it's not a charity. We don't want to take anything from anyone else. And, Ed and I down the road, we would love to have almost like a gala where each table is a different nonprofit and we can share their stories and make sure that people have resources. And sort of, if there was somebody who's like, oh my God, I would love to get involved with Ainsley's Angels. And I have, I'm trying to qualify for Boston. And so I have 3 different races, and for them to reach out to us and for me to be able to connect them with you. It's things like that. So that we're just getting away from traditional media and as brothers and sisters in services working together to help each other.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's much needed. And I mean, there are, when you do the transition, there are the separation classes that you go through. And sometimes we have a tendency, depending on where we are in life, to just kind of check those boxes and go through it real fast. My recommendation would be to try to refrain from doing that, regardless of where you are in your journey, whether you're wrapping up a 3, 4, 5-year career, maybe you're being medically discharged at a point when you didn't expect, or maybe you did the whole journey and you're doing a retirement process, whether you're officer, enlisted, warrant officer. I don't believe you should allow those sessions to really escape you. I know when I went through them, the room was filled with officer and enlisted, between the ranks of, E4s and up to O4s. And the people that took the time to put their energy into it found much more that you gleaned from it. But you could, and that's like anything in life, but you could also see the folks that were kind of just showing up. And if you had to build your resume, it was like, kind of, going about it haphazardly. And in the end, you didn't walk away with a resume or all the things, the tools, the e-benefits and the different kind of platforms that they introduce you to even include your VA claim, which every person that leaves the service should at least file a claim. These are the things that they can help you with during that process. And it's a matter of how do we help those that are just over it all and just want to be done with it? How do we help them realize the benefit of pouring some energy into actually making sure your transition is all that it can be?
I agree. I think that's kind of what we're trying. It's like, how do you pierce the veil of understanding or show the potential and the difference?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think it starts with leadership, taking an interest in all of the service members to explain to them as they're about to go to some of this separation process of the benefits that they've earned, regardless of their situation. just by completing officer candidate school or boot camp and having an honorable discharge, or even some cases general or other than honorable. Like, you still have benefits that you've earned. And there is a thing that some of the services may be more so than others, where folks are hesitant to want to really, I don't want to use the word exploit, but get to know their benefits, because they feel like, well, VA is a good example. Like, people feel like they're very healthy and they're capable of doing great things. I don't want to file a VA claim. Why would I do that? Like, I'm healthy. But there's so many things that just develop over time, and getting it documented and getting it into the system and going through that process just has great benefits for you as you get older. You may not realize it at 36, but by the time you're 56, you'd be like, man, I wish we would have really poured some energy into that process.
Great. All right. Is there anything else that you would like the viewers to know about Ainsley's Angels?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, no, I think we covered it. It's just a matter of saying, like, if you know anybody that you think could benefit from being included in these community events, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, or if you're an athlete yourself and you've gotten to your point where you're kind of over just running for yourself, you know, sometimes that can get boring, or get to a point where you really want to help some other people or take your talent and give it to others. Like, we definitely could provide that. And I would also want to say, when it comes to veteran service organizations like the Travis Manion Foundation, like, these entities are, as I've heard a recent comment from a 4-star general say, you know, these are the 21st century versions of some of our old veteran entities, whether that's VFW or some of the other places that our Vietnam, World War II folks really poured their energy into. That's not to say that any one of those older organizations are less than. It's just that the way that some of the VSOs, like the Travis Manion Foundation, have decided to execute in 2020, 2022, is much more something that can be connected. You can find more of an interest and a connection to today's veterans. And so how do we bridge the gap between the veterans that are 60 years old and still are doing, you know, things like the VFW? And I think it's through partnerships, you know, taking Travis Manion Foundation's ethos and focus and people and introducing them and partnering with and presenting to the VFW. But how do you do that in a way where one charity doesn't feel like you're taking away from another? You know, and that's the challenge, and that's where communication comes in, and that's where Ainsley's Angels and Travis Manion Foundation have found a way to make that work, where all people can be included in some of these events and go through this process, and we can blend the passions. So I guess that's the conclusion statement. You know, once you've identified, you know, what your passion is and what, you know, what your purpose in life is, how do you take that and then make it to where others can benefit from that and set them up for exceptional experiences?
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for your time. And for those others out there, if you like what you are listening to, definitely, you know where to find us and follow us along. And I will say goodbye for the day.